we can have an economy-wide benefit which will build on the support that we provide to families who can save about $30 a week if they're fueling 2 cars under our plan. That family will get 70 cents a day. I mean, I think it's actually farcical and it's insulting to Australians who are really going through a lot of pain under this government at the moment. I also wanted to just make a very quick remark in relation to what is a very important and evolving issue. I spoke to the Premier of Queensland, David Crisafulli, earlier today, and I've had a number of conversations with David Littleproud as well as Perrin Davey. There is a very significant flooding event that's taking place in Western Queensland. There obviously are evacuations that are taking place now. I've said to the Premier, particularly given that we're in the caretaker mode, that we will support any measure in relation to providing support to those communities. We would support the call out of the Australian Defence Force if that request is made by the Queensland Government. And David obviously has gone out to his electorate, which is one of the electorates that's being hit in this flooding event. It's not just the impact obviously on homesteads and assets, fences and yards and all of the infrastructure that you would expect to find on these big properties. There is the very significant likelihood of very significant stock losses of cattle, of sheep, of goats, the impact on wildlife and the environment in that part of the world otherwise. So our thoughts, our prayers are with those who are affected by that very significant event, and the Premier advised me that there would be the likelihood of localised flooding in some parts of southeast Queensland over the next 24 hours as well. I'm happy to take any questions.
Mr. Dutton,
yeah.
We're in Queensland today.
Yes.
How are you going to convince LNG exporters in this state to withhold a significant amount of uncontracted gas for the domestic market?
So what happens at the moment is we have contracts to export gas, the foundation contracts, and we honour those contracts because it's an important revenue earner for our country. It's what helps pay for schools and roads, etc. But we need to make sure that Australian gas is for Australians first and foremost. And it's ridiculous that we're paying an electricity price 3 times that of comparable nations when we just can't afford to do so. And the thing that Mr Albanese is not telling you at the moment is that electricity prices under his plan will go up after the election. Under our plan, electricity prices will come down. And I think that is a very important point to make. We will work with the companies, but ultimately I'm going to be driven by what is in the best interests of our country, and it will require tough decisions that the Prime Minister hasn't been able to take. And if we do that, then there will be a society-wide, an economy-wide benefit, and that's how we can bring down prices.
What we saw upstairs with that incident upstairs.
Sorry, I'll come back to you in a second. Yep,
You've said you can get some of this gas into the market by the end of this calendar year.
Yes.
How are you feasibly going to be able to achieve that? And can you put a dollar figure on how much this plan will reduce the average household's power bills by?
Well, there's gas already, obviously, that is being exported, but it's not contracted to do so under the foundation contracts. And that's the point that I'd make. We don't need to rely on new gas wells. There is gas there now. We will work with the companies, and we've been working on this plan for months in consultation with stakeholders and others who have expertise in the area. I just think we need to point out that it is a very significant part of our economy, and it's a big part of why electricity prices have gone up and why gas prices are up by 34% under this government. So we've got a plan. It's a positive plan. It will deliver lower gas and electricity prices, and that is what you would expect from a party that always manages the economy more effectively than Labor does. Yeah. Yes, mate.
Mr Dutton, just on the incident we saw upstairs a few minutes ago, yourself, Angus Taylor, Jim Chalmers, you've all had protesters interrupt your events. Is that going to change the way that you campaign over the next 5 weeks?
Look, I'll just make this point in relation to the broader issue that they're raising. Climate is incredibly important to us, and we have to meet our net zero by 2050 targets as we've committed to. Our plan is about getting prices down through bringing more gas into the domestic market, and that more supply will bring prices down. Under Mr Albanese, the renewables only policy is going to drive prices up further. Secondly, we've got a longer term plan, and as Keir Starmer points out in the UK, they can't reach their climate change commitments. They can't decarbonise without nuclear in the system. So I just think we have to have a mature conversation in our country about it. But people who are extremists who want everything shut down tomorrow, that's not where the vast majority of Australians are. And I just think there will be extremes in all of these debates. My job is to do the right thing by this country, and we will make the decisions that will be of benefit to Australian consumers and Australian businesses, because Australians just can't afford 3 more years of Mr Albanese and increasing costs.
Yes. Had a policy that's very focused on petrol and people who own cars. Your government has been very critical of the National Vehicle Emissions Standard, that taking away choice. Yeah. But can I be really clear? A coalition government, will you ease or abolish the NVES?
Well, we're dead against Labor's tax on cars and utes. I think we should be very clear about that. So we need to decarbonise, and we're doing that, and we support that. And we have a lot of money invested into renewables, but there's no sense pretending that on a day like this, and in Western Queensland now, the generators that are required to run the mobile phone towers, etc., we just can't pretend that can happen on solar panels today. And we need to have a proper balance in the system is the important point that I would make. We need to make sure that we've got an underpinning of what has been the underpinning of our economy over the last 150 years in a place like this. We just don't have manufacturing in our country if we don't have both. We've made our position clear in the Parliament in relation to opposing Labor's changes. That remains our policy. We will go to this election with a policy to bring down the cost of cars and utes, because Mr Albanese has applied a tax by stealth. He never talks about it. He never says to tradies and to families at the moment who are looking at buying a car or buying a ute that they're going to pay more and more under Mr Albanese's ute and car tax.
The PM this morning has said he's out to win seats. He started his election campaign in your seat. It's on a razor-thin margin. Are you concerned you could lose your seat?
Well, I'd welcome Mr Albanese meeting as many of my constituents in Dixon as possible, and I think my margin would go up as a result of that. So, very happy for that. Yes. Yeah.
4X has boasted about the brewery being carbon neutral and powered by solar panels. Doesn't that show they're voting with their feet and they think that's the future for Australia?
Well, it's fantastic that they've got big investment into solar here, but we can't pretend that the solar is going to work tonight, on tonight's shift. They'll be relying on offsets, etc. But ultimately, it'll be fossil fuels that'll be fueling the production line here tonight. And without that, there's no jobs. So it's a question of getting a balance in the system. And the problem with Mr Albanese's system is that he's trying to please inner city Greens in Sydney and Melbourne, and people in Ryan and in Brisbane, in Parramatta, in outer metropolitan seats across the country. They're the ones that are going to be hit hardest by the taxes that Mr Albanese is putting on people. And I just say this to Australians, it's going to get worse under a Labor Greens government. The Prime Minister can pretend about winning seats, and I think this has been a Prime Minister who's more about spin and more about stunts than he is about substance. And if he spent more time on creating a plan to deal with inflation and to bring power prices down than stunts over the last few years, our country would be in a better place, and we wouldn't have Labor's cost of living crisis as we now know it. Yes, mate.
You said yesterday that your gas plan would bring down electricity prices by the end of this calendar year. What modelling have you done, and can you explain exactly how much people would stand to save on electricity as a result of the gas reserve?
Claire, I'm going to leave it to others, experts in the space, to talk about their analysis of our plan. But there is work that's been done by Frontier, and it does provide some indication. Now, that will be an issue for them in due course, but I'm not going into this election, as the Prime Minister did in the last election, promising that electricity prices will come down by $275, because, as the Prime Minister did before the last election, it wasn't something that he's been able to deliver on. Now, for me, I want to deliver on a tangible outcome, and the best way that we can do that is to reduce the price of gas, and we know that we can do that by getting more gas into the system. If we restrict supply, which is what Labor has done, that drives the price up. And Australians aren't silly, they know what's happened. So it's not just providing the gas that's in the system now for Australians first, it's also making sure that we can bring new gas into the system, and I think that's important. So prices will be lower under us, there is no question about that. And Mr Albanese's 2035 plan, which he's got the modelling of, as you know, but refuses to release that. So the Labor Party's secret modelling on the 2035 target, if it was good for our country, Why wouldn't he release it before the election? Well, what we know...
modelling on his plan that you won't release. If your plan is
why
wouldn't you release your modelling?
We're very happy to release it, and it'll be released in...
You just sledged the Prime Minister for not releasing 2035 modelling. Why won't you release yours?
You'll see it very shortly.
Mr. Dutton, no election I'd suggest that you've ever been to has begun with polling so strongly suggesting that we will have a hung parliament at the end of it. So as we begin, what guarantees can you give the Australian people that if they serve you a hung parliament, you'll negotiate in good faith for a minority government? And what guarantees should Anthony Albanese give about a minority parliament situation?
Well, Tim, it's a good question. You're all experts in this space. I mean, does anyone believe that Anthony Albanese can form a majority government after the election? There's not one political expert in the country that is predicting that Mr Albanese can form a majority government after the election. So Tim, your point is right, that there is a real prospect of either a Labor-Greens minority government along with the Green Teals, a coalition minority government, or indeed a coalition majority government. I believe that we can achieve a majority government, and some of you would say that's difficult, and it is. There's no question about that. But I believe there is a pathway. If we need to negotiate for a minority government, we will do that. And I think I've demonstrated, and frankly I think you've seen this from the comments, not just of my colleagues, but from some of the independents with whom we've had a one-on-one conversation with, we've dealt with on issues. I have a very good relationship with many of them, not all of them, because some are pretending to be disaffected Liberals, but they're really Greens, like Monique Ryan and Kate Chaney. They're Greens, hardcore Greens, and they won't support a coalition government if there is a minority government to be formed after the election. So to answer your question, the guarantee that I can give is that we will negotiate in good faith if that's the circumstances put before us. But I would say to the Australian people that the choice you have, if you're voting for Labor at this election, you're voting knowing that it can only be a Labor-Greens government. And that is a disaster for the economy. And when you see what the wrecking ball that Labor's been through the economy over the last 3 years, our country, your family, just can't afford 3 more years of that. And it would be worse because a big spending Greens, Labor, Teals government would drive up inflation and therefore interest rates again, as well as energy costs, and no Australian can afford that. I'll come back over to so much, yeah.
When it comes to immigration,
yes.
Your policy to cut permanent migration by 25% is alienating some migrant voters. What do you say to those people who feel targeted by you, and will you be upfront with them about which visa categories would be affected? Well,
look, we've said that by bringing in a record number of people over the last 2 years, so 1 million people, the biggest number in our country's history, the government's created a housing crisis, and Australians know that. When you try and rent a house or you're trying to buy a house, it's hard for young Australians, harder than it's ever been. And that's in good part because the 1 million people who have come in also want a house and a roof over their heads for, of their kids. I mean, that's perfectly understandable, but we have to make sure that we can get Australians into housing first. And we are a great country. I was talking to one of the workers here before, and her story is an amazing one. Her dad came from Chile, and she's now the second generation working in this plant, and would have come here with very little, if anything. The migrant story of our country is an amazing one, and we should be proud and speaking more about it. But we do need to manage our migration program properly. And there are many migrant families I've spoken to around the country who are desperately worried for their kids. They're second and third generation migrants. They've come to this country looking for opportunity, and their kids can't afford to buy a house. Their kids can't find a rental property. And so many from all parts of our society are experiencing exactly the same as everyone else, and that is that it's tougher to find a house under this government. And we'll provide the detail, and we've set a 25% cut to the permanent program, as you know. And yeah, of course we will. Yeah. Yes.
Back to minority government. Where in Queensland there is one crossbencher here by the name of Bob Catter who could be interested in supporting. Who else might the coalition form a minority government with? Would you do a deal?
Look, I just think the focus at the moment is on how we can present our positive plan to the Australian people. I think all of the politics, can be dealt with, at another time and another place. But I think it is important for the Australian people to hear now is that I want to manage the economy effectively. I want to keep Australians safe. I want to see young Australians achieve the dream of home ownership again. And I want to make sure that we can have a quality healthcare system in our country. The Labor Party is promising 3 more years of the same, and Australians just can't afford 3 more years of Labor. So we'll speak to our colleagues, but our task now is to win Ryan, where we've got an amazing candidate in Maggie Forrest, win Brisbane, where we've got an amazing candidate in Trevor Evans. I think in Queensland we can win Blair. I think we're a real shot in winning Lilly. And I think we're a shot in winning Moreton as well. And I'll be in Moreton this afternoon, and I think that's important.
Mr. Dutton, just clarifying on the electricity, are you going to go to the electorate and just say, trust me, electricity prices will come down? You won't reveal any modelling or exactly detail how you will do that?
Well, I'll let other economists talk about their own modelling.
But it's your plan,
but our plan is based on economics. And if you bring more supply into the market, if you bring more gas into the market, you will bring the price down. And so we lower the price, as you know, and we went through some of this detail on Thursday night. But the price will come down from $14 a gigajoule to $10, a very significant reduction. Now that is, roughly around a little less than $10, but the long-term production cost, the long-run production cost of gas is just under $10. Now we're saying that that gas is not going to be exported out of the foundation contracts, and that gas will come into the market. Now, BlueScope is out today, so if you're after what the people who are using gas are saying, their analysis, one of the biggest energy users in the country, not the Liberal Party saying this, not the Nationals saying it, BlueScope, a trusted Australian company and a huge energy user, producing steel, going into homes, going into the stadiums that we'll see here in Brisbane for 2032, their analysis is, their independent analysis is that energy prices will drop under our plan. And there is no doubt that prices will be cheaper under ours. Mr Albanese has a secret plan for 2035 which he refuses to release, and he should release that before the election, because if power prices are going to continue to go up under Mr Albanese's plan and they're going to come down under us, well, I think that is something that the Australian public will weigh up. We might go to a couple who haven't asked a question yet. Yep. Sure. You gave yours to Claire before, so come on.
Yeah. Exactly how much gas are you going to bring on, and where's that $10 based on? And then you're attacking the Prime Minister for not revealing his 2035 target or the modelling, but you're not doing the same.
But look, in relation to the 2035 target from opposition, Mr Albanese didn't go into the last election saying what their target would be based on government advice, from modelling, but not based on advice from the Finance Department and from Treasury and from the other central agencies. So it's reckless, to be honest, to be out there talking about what the target will be well into the future without that information. The economy has soured in big part under this government, and we don't know what the projections are. We've seen some of Labor's own figures in the budget, but I'm keen to speak to the Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet and of Finance and of Treasury so that we can provide in an informed way and in a way that is achievable. There's no sense doing as the Labor Party says and damaging the Australian economy, putting out numbers there that aren't based in fact, just emotion, because they're chasing inner city votes from Green voters in Melbourne and Sydney. Ours has to be a considered plan for the economy, and that's why the Coalition will always manage the economy more effectively than the Labor Party. And that's the approach that we will take. It'll be responsible and bringing more gas into the system. It's supported by the AWU. It's supported by the Australian Workers' Union. It's been hailed today as the way to reduce the price of gas by BlueScope. And as we've seen here, the price of electricity, gas, energy has gone up by about 37%, which is why you're paying more and more for a schooner of beer, for a pint of beer under Labor than you were a few years ago. And the saddest part is that the prices are going to keep going up, and families can't afford that. So we've got to have a proper plan. There's 50 to 100 petajoules that we want to bring back into the system, but again, that will fluctuate depending on demand, and it will fluctuate depending on what happens in Victoria with the terminal that they're planning to build. I mean, contemplate this: under the Labor government, they're going to build an $800 million plus terminal in Victoria to import gas into a country like ours where we have an abundance of natural resource. All that's going to do is drive the cost up and do further harm to the economy in Victoria and the national economy. So our plan has been well thought through. it's a positive plan for our country. It's about bringing electricity and gas prices down. We can achieve that. The only promise you're getting from the Prime Minister is 70 cents per day tax cut in 15 months' time, if they ever eventuate. And we're providing a plan to help people when they fill up at the Bowser every time. It'll be $14 a tank cheaper under our plan, 25 cents a litre cheaper, and that will be followed up by our gas plan and other plans that we've got that we'll announce that will make it easier for Australians, not harder as is the case under Mr Albanese's policy.
Last question,
Yep.
thank you. In terms of releasing the modelling that shows that this will reduce power prices during this campaign.
Yeah, we'll release the costings and some of the analysis. I think there'll be other analysis, as I say, by BlueScope now, one of the biggest energy users in the country. And I think every Australian should hear this message that BlueScope, one of the biggest users of energy in the country, says that our plan, the Coalition's gas plan, will reduce prices of energy. And that will help in the building sector, it'll help across the economy, and it'll help us clean up Labor's mess. And I'd say to Australians that this election is about making sure that we can get our country back on track. It's about who do you trust to manage the economy and to keep Australia safe in an uncertain time. Who do you trust to help young Australians get into homes more quickly? Who do you trust to deal with the problem that Labor's created, not just in relation to inflation, but in relation to energy? And our plan, our positive plan for our country, will get our country back on track. Thank you very much.
That was